All right, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from StreetScores, and we are here to break down everything that went down in day 6 of training camp practice. I'm recording this at 11:40 p.m., so I'm going to try to, go in between saying today, because technically it feels like the day to me. I haven't gone to sleep yet, but I'm going to try to emphasize yesterday as well when I say some things. But either way, we're talking about the practice, day 6 of training camp, Tuesday, July 29th. We have Sainristil apparently becoming a lockdown corner. Some people are saying that he's been the best player so far of training camp period, regardless of side of the ball. Also, we have Ja'Cory Crosskey-Merritt starting already, getting some starting snaps. We're going to dive into that. Is this defense elite? Has it done a complete 180 from last year, defensive line and secondary wise? We're going to dive into everything, man. I'm super excited. Of course, we're going to dive into each position group: quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, offensive line, D-line, linebackers, corners, safeties, and I even have some pretty important special teams updates for you as well. So make sure you stick around for that. And before we dive into everything, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned to all of the content. Really appreciate y'all for supporting every video, watching every video all the way through. Really appreciate y'all, so make sure y'all stay tuned. Without further ado, I'm gonna have y'all updated on everything. Let's get it. Adam. All right, so before we even get into everything that happened in practice, because again, we're going to go position group by position group, but we have a few things to talk about, kind of like the setup for everything that went down today. First of all, you had a lot of interesting people that were there at practice. Regina Jackson, Jaden Daniels' mom, was at the practice. Again, Tuesday, July 29th, day 6 practice of the 2025 Washington Commanders training camp. And this is Scott Abraham's clip. And the fact that she even saw the camera and gave a nice little wave, that was pretty cool. And then also, you had not only Adam Peters, but team president Mark Klaus out there again for practice. Of course, Adam Peters is going to be there. He's the general manager. He's literally running the entire football side of things. Why would he ever miss a day of practice? But Mark Klaus is literally the Adam Peters, but of the business side. Really no direct relation to the football side. He doesn't come in and tell us who we should draft, who should start, who we should sign in free agency, contracts, and things like that. That is not, he's working on the stadium and anything business related. And the fact that he just loves the Commanders, he loves the environment, the culture so much, he's been coming out to a lot of the practices. And then Jay Daniels, MVP, even quote tweeted this clip that was uploaded by Scott Abraham, and he said that he loves how Mark Klaus greeted all of the fans on Sunday and chatted. A very down-to-earth guy. That's really cool to hear, man, especially from a businessman. And then JP Finley uploaded this clip here. You see Doug Williams signing things for the kids, connecting the generations and things like that. I absolutely love the fact that, first of all, that this organization embraces Doug Williams, but also the fact that Doug Williams feels like he can be embraced. A lot of the Redskins legends, just when Dan Snyder was still our owner, they just didn't want to be around the team. And even if they did, Dan Snyder didn't allow it. He never really honored them and stuff like that. So now that's why you see Champ Bailey pull up to day 5 of training camp. You see Art Monk and Daryl Green, all of these guys getting their jerseys retired. It's beautiful, man. Absolutely beautiful. And today's practice, aka again, we're talking about Tuesday, July 29th, that practice went back to no pads apparently. They were padded the last practice, the one that was on Monday, July 28th, day 5 of the training camp, but day 6 was not padded apparently. So it's like they kind of ramped it back down just for a day, and then they're going to ramp it right back up because we're going to go to full contact very soon. It could be the practice, the very next one. We'll see. And then also, of course, we have some big headliner news. This is a guy that I was really excited about, and I thought he may even have a chance to compete for like the starting right guard spot alongside with Nick Allegretti and Trent Scott and then maybe even Andrew Wiley as well. Nate Herbig retired, man. Per Dan Quinn, Herbig was recently signed to a 1-year deal this offseason, and he was supposed to be the starting center for the Steelers before he got hurt. Adam Schefter even reported on it. He said the Commanders have placed guard Nate Herbig on the reserve retired list. Head coach Dan Quinn said Tuesday. Herbig was a 5-year veteran who spent last season on the injured reserve after tearing his rotator cuff. And shouts out to Ref the District. He brought up a funny point, though. He said, maybe we just need a roster spot for Terry McLaurin after he signs. You know what I'm I'm saying? Maybe the Terry McLaurin contract is on the way, and they had to create a roster spot for that. I don't know. But then again, I believe Terry McLaurin's roster spot, that's why we had to cut, who was it, Fentrell Cypress, I think it was. I think Carlin Vickers was the one that stayed. I think we cut Fentrell Cypress to allow Terry McLaurin to come back off of like the not participating list, and now he's just on the PUP list or something like that. But also, Mike Garafolo brought up the fact that veteran guard Will Hernandez, who tore his ACL last season, announced on IG yesterday that he's been fully cleared. He's an intriguing option for teams, as the former Giants second rounder was playing his best ball of his career for the Arizona Cardinals last year before he got hurt. Maybe we're in touch. Maybe we're looking at that. Remember, Bobby Johnson, our current offensive lines coach, was the offensive lines coach for the Giants when Will Hernandez was there, and he was a really talented kid coming out of college. So maybe Bobby Johnson is whispering to Adam Peters, like, hey, at least give him an opportunity. Let him come in and try out or something like that, because you can never have too much depth. And Nate Herbig, I'm a little bit sad about that one. And I was always worried, like, man, Eddie Goldman has retired like twice, but he's been having a pretty good camp so far, so I was a little worried about him potentially retiring again. Michael Gallup retired for the Raiders. He was with the Cowboys his entire career, had one season that he was supposed to go with the Raiders, and then just felt like homesick, I guess, and he was like, I don't want to do it. Like, after he signed, he was like, actually, I don't think I'm really up to this. So Michael Gallup's been on my radar as a guy that may potentially retire out of nowhere. Nate Herbig, I never would have guessed, but it makes sense. You've had 5 years in the NFL. You're coming off of a terrible injury. He's probably going through these training camp practices. It's hot. He's like, man, I got enough money to reinvest it into something important to have long-term generational wealth. I think I'm done putting my body on the line. I'm not mad at it at all, but I am a little sad. And now moving on, speaking of injuries, Real Robinson brings up a great point. He said every day that the injury bug avoids this team is a successful day of camp. We could debate and argue back and forth about the offense, about the defense, who's winning, who's having a better day, and we always have these debates about when the offense is doing well, does that mean the offense is that good, or does that mean the defense is that bad? And vice versa, if the defense is playing well, does that mean our offense is bad, or does that mean the defense is playing well? At the end of the day, I completely agree with Real Robinson. When both sides escape every day healthy, fully healthy, that's a win in itself. I completely agree. And then now moving on to the coaches, Dan Quinn did let everybody know that Von Miller, Marshawn Lattimore, Zach Ertz, and Laramie Tunsil, who missed the Monday, July 28th practice, were back for the July 29th practice. But at the same time, Marcus Mariota was the one that got the veteran rest day. At least no teamwork. He went through drills, but when it came to teamwork, he just sat out. And Quinn said that they'll ramp guys up and then down. So they'll kind of play and they'll participate in everything. Then we'll bring you back down. And it's basically an effort to keep guys fresh before the season starts. And a lot of the veteran guys don't participate in that first practice of the week, even throughout the regular season. And hey, you get Zach Ertz, who was labeled as injury prone before we signed him, and old, and Bobby Wagner, who was also considered old, and both of those guys play every single of the 20 games that we played last season, including the postseason. I'm gonna give Dan Quinn and whatever strategy they have going on the absolute benefit of the doubt. These vet rest days must really be working. It's some formula there that gives them the guys the fountain of youth. I'm not gonna question it. Now moving on to the quarterbacks, of course, most of this is Jaden Daniels, but we do have a Sam Hartman update. Again, Marcus Mariota did not participate in practice, so Sam Hartman was the second string quarterback, so he got to play with like a higher caliber of talent than he normally does, with better talent around him, but also going against better defensive talent, and he stepped up to the plate. But first of all, Jaden Daniels, Linnell Willingham pointed out the fact that Jaden Daniels had a deep ball to Deebo that would have technically have been a sack, but it was still a great deep ball nonetheless. And he said that it was a clunky day for the offense up to a certain point. And he said again, because remember, Monday's July 28th practice, which was day 5 of training camp, the first day of fans being there, that was a pretty sloppy practice for the offense as well. Everybody feels like the defense won that day. It was pretty similar today as well. And then George Carmi said, I agree with this. He was there as well. He said the offense looked a little off today. But I feel like it's more so not because of the offense, it's more so because of the defense playing better. And then Disco brings up a good point. He said, I have zero concerns with the offense. The line just needs to gel. I feel like a lot of this is the line needs to gain better chemistry. And you already have Laramie Tunsil taking off vet days. He wasn't here until mandatory mini camps. You have a first round rookie in Josh Connolly that's still learning his way up and developing. We're going to talk about him quite a bit when we get to the offensive line part of this video. But like, we still have a lot of new pieces kind of gelling. Brandon Coleman is moving to left guard for the first time in his NFL career. I mean, he's only going to his second year. Played a lot of guard in college, but the NFL is a different story. So you traded for Laramie Tunsil. You just drafted Josh Connolly. Brandon Coleman switching positions. And then we're not even sure if Samuel Cosmi is going to be healthy week 1 and at least healthy enough to actually go out there and play. So chemistry and you know, continuity is going to be a little bit of an issue to start the season, and right now it's definitely a problem. And like I've said this several times over the past few years in videos, live streams, wherever, that I will take the offensive line with 5 good guys that have played together forever than just gathering a bunch of 5 Pro Bowlers that have never played a snap together and then trying to play a game, because chemistry matters that much when it comes to the offensive line. Knowing what the other guy's thinking without them having to talk. When we're in quick moments, panic situations, and you have to know what the other guy's thinking, he has to know what you're thinking. Offensive line is very important, man. It's a lot of nuance, IQ, and awareness and stuff like that, and having quick decision-making skills. And a lot of that comes with time. It doesn't matter if you're a Pro Bowler as an individual, if you're a future first ballot Hall of Famer as an individual. If y'all are not a cohesive unit, it's going to be sloppy and at the very least inconsistent. So I feel like a lot of our offensive problems right now are because of the fact that our offensive line has not gelled yet. Again, you have a rookie at right tackle, and then Laramie Tunsil just got here and is taking vet days off. So we'll get the chemistry there eventually, I'm sure of it. Not like I said, I feel like this offensive line is going to be a top 5 offensive line in the NFL, and maybe have a chance to compete for the best offensive line in all of football this season, and even beyond, moving, you know, going into further years as well. But it's probably not going to look like it week 1. We still have a lot of gelling to do, man. That's what happens when you have a lot of roster turnover. And then also, Kelly Burgess pointed out the fact that they were consistently doing red zone work, especially throughout today's practice, Tuesday, July 29th. And Bleeding Burgundy and Gold was there, and he said they must plan to score a lot. And I like that. It sounds like, I mean, with as much red zone work as we're doing, we're trying to refine that, make sure when we get there, we're scoring touchdowns, not field goals. I love that. And again, for you to do that many red zone drills, you seem to be pretty confident that you can even get to the red zone in the first place if you're prioritizing your time. I mean, time is limited, and you're spending your time doing a bunch of red zone drills rather than working on things that would get you to the red zone. They're pretty confident in their ability to get there, and they just want to refine their ability to punch it in for 6 rather than just kick it for 3. And then also you had a moment, Linnell Willingham pointed out the fact that Noah Brown just had a deep ball go right through his hands, beautifully placed by Jaden Daniels, and it was great coverage by Marshawn Lattimore. So a great play by Jaden Daniels, great play by Marshawn Lattimore, and it was Noah Brown that basically left the play with something to be desired. It was him that let everybody down. Lattimore on point, Jaden Daniels on point, Noah Brown not as much. And then Red Zone in the Lab said that KJ Osborne has also been having some drops the last 2 practices, and that he's made some great catches as well to kind of balance it out, but he just hasn't been very consistent. And then you even have a moment where Chris Moore, where he was open, he should have had a touchdown. Jaden Daniels threw the ball really well, like a deep dime, like a deep ball and everything, and went right through Chris Moore's hands. And so right now, I mean, with plays like that's happening more often than y'all probably are comfortable with, Terry's probably gaining a little bit more leverage day by day because our receivers are dropping so many passes. And this is also contributing to the overall offense being sloppy as well. The offensive line not gelling yet, and Terry McLaurin not being there. Like, imagine if the Eagles passing game didn't have A.J. Brown in it. You know, you still have Devonta Smith, you still have Jalen Hurts, you still have the threat of the run game with Saquon Barkley in that offensive line, but they're not going to be anywhere near the same potent offense. But also, it takes the offense more time to get everything down packed and fully clicking on all cylinders in comparison to the defense. So, you know, the offense is just going to take some time. Like Bleeding Burgundy and Gold brings up a great point. He said, I wouldn't be too worried about the offense, you know, being a little sloppy. Because if we go back a year ago, the offense was really actually clunky up until the Miami joint practice. It takes time. So if anything, we're probably a little bit ahead of schedule from what we were last year. And last year we put up historical numbers. Jaden Daniels had the best rookie season of all time. We were like historically great at 4th down efficiency. We were still elite at 3rd down efficiency, at scoring, not having to punt. And we didn't get our stuff straight until really about the Miami joint practice. So don't worry, don't panic when you're hearing the offense struggling a little bit. And like I said, We have the offensive line that needs to catch up. We still need Terry to come back. And just in general, the offense just takes longer to get their stuff together than the defense, especially since Cliff Kingsbury is probably throwing in a bunch of more plays now that he has a different personnel group to work with, a far more talented one going into this season than he had last year. So maybe the offense is a little confusing in some ways. And then Red Zone in the Lab was being funny. He said it seems like the offense is missing something. Of course, alluding to Terry McLaurin not being there. Then you also have this clip right here where you have Jaden Daniels catching a pass for a touchdown for Marcus Mariota. And so Jay Daniels MVP asks, will we see Jaden Daniels catch a touchdown pass this season? And I'm completely with Rigo's rag. He said, Jesus Christ, I hope not. Please no. It seems cool, but nah, it's not even worth it, dog. I mean, if it's like the Super Bowl and we really need it, and you're like replicating the Philly special or something like that, we're going all in. We're selling everything that we have to win this one game right now because it's the end all be all. It's the Super Bowl. Win or go home, win it all or lose it all. I can understand it then, but don't ever pull something out like that in the regular season, man. And then also shouts out the Red Zone in the Lab. He said Jaden Daniels at a certain point in practice had about 60 rushing yards, and that was at 8:57 a.m. So that was probably like the middle of practice. He probably had even more than that. I'm just mentioning that to let you know that Jaden Daniels was running around. Jaden Daniels is going to be used. He's going to use his legs a lot this season. Hopefully not to the point that he's our leading rusher on the season, but I think he'll be more efficient. I think on a per run basis, he'll get more yards. I just don't think he'll get as many yards overall because I think we'll have a true rushing attack and a even more potent passing attack this year as well, to where he wouldn't have to rush as much because the offensive line is going to block so well for him. He's not going to have to bail on the play, run out of the pocket, make something shake. He can just stay in the pocket, sit still, deliver the ball with his arm, which is what he wants to do. Ideally, again, he's one of the most mobile quarterbacks in the NFL. But he literally wants to play like a Tom Brady, and that's why he's so elite. Then Kevin Clark, he asked Dan Quinn about Jaden Daniels and Cliff Kingsbury in year 2, and he compared it to the relationship between Peyton Manning and Tom Moore, and basically Jaden Daniels' work ethic to Peyton Manning as well. Quinn recently saw Jaden walking off the field at dawn because he was up that early. I mean, that boy Jaden Daniels is different. You want to go check that out? That is by Kevin Clark on Twitter. It's a whole 2-minute, 21-second interview with Dan Quinn. I highly suggest watching that, but that was one of the main quotes from it. And then also, NFL Network was even talking about Jaden Daniels earlier during the practice. I don't think they were there. I think they were there the day before. They were there at the Monday, July 28th practice, but even on July 29th, or it was like later in the evening, July 28th after the practice, they had a whole talk about Jaden Daniels and basically just complimenting them left and right. Like the question was, could the Commanders be the team to beat in the NFC East? And then the quote that came from either Derek Carr or Chris Rose, one of them said, Jaden Daniels is an elite level quarterback already. He's special. That's why he's at least going to give them a chance. And then moving on, Sam Hartman wise, Red Zone in the Lab said that Sam Hartman had himself a day. Outside of one pick that he threw to Kane Madrano, that boy Sam Hartman had a really good day. So he elevated as far as talent that he had to play with, but also the talent he had to play against. He had to go against a better defense than he typically does. With Marcus Mariota out there, Sam Hartman goes against the 3rd and 4th stringers. Today, well, again, Tuesday, July 29th, Sam Hartman was out there going against the 2nd stringers. So there was a higher level of talent that he had to deal with, and apparently he stepped up to the call. I mean, going against a better defense, he elevated his own play and looked even better against the better defense than he did against the worst defense. Ben Standig pointed out the fact that there was 2 days in a row that Sam Hartman had a downfield dart. And then the one that was in Tuesday, July 29th practice was one to Deebo Samuel. So he was throwing the ball to Deebo Samuel. He was out there with some starters. And Deebo, he also pointed out the fact that Deebo gets at least 1 or 2 chunk plays every practice. So Deebo is going to be a very potent part of our offense, but also Sam Hartman is really showing that he deserves that 3rd quarterback spot over a Josh Johnson, and I'm rooting for him. I'm happy for him. Now moving on to the running backs. According to multiple reports, Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt was getting first team reps at the practice Tuesday, July 29th, and looked really solid. He looked like he belonged. He didn't look like a 7th round rookie that has been mostly playing amongst the backups so far in training camp. He looked like he had always been playing with the starters. Couch GM at Ron Rivera Burner, funny name, he pointed out the fact that Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt was getting reps with Jaden Daniels in the ones when we went to a no-huddle session, which is really interesting. Chris Russell also said that Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt continues to run low and hard with bursts. So is that the situation where JCM has like the quickest pathway to real playing time? Like at a time when his athleticism, his quickness, his burst, his explosion, his agility, and all the change of direction skills, you know, which is better than every other running back on this team. If we're talking about just natural talent and ability, he is far more athletic than any other running back we have on this roster. Yeah, these are the situations that, like, those type of traits can shine the most when we're in no huddle. And I really like the idea of that. So maybe that's his quickest pathway to playing early and often. When we're in no huddle situations, 2-minute warning, you get those young legs out there, the more explosive legs, the more agile legs, and that puts a lot of pressure on the defense to, keep their stamina up and to keep up with not only Jaden Daniels and the explosive offense we'll have in the passing game, but also Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt coming out of that backfield. And then even John Kahn via 1067 The Fan, he talked about Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt. He said, quote, "I think who I'm most intrigued with to see throughout the preseason is Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt, just because it's really hard to tell out there without pads on what he can do. But you can see those decisive cuts. On film, you saw the violent nature of his runs. Watching him run some pass routes, he looks pretty good. So I think that he's someone I'm really intrigued by." And I already showed y'all the video yesterday that Grant Paulson put together where he went around asking a lot of the top reporters that were at practice, again, the Monday, July 28th practice, and asked them, which player are you looking forward to seeing the most? Who's standing out to you the most right now? They're going into the preseason. Who do you have your eye on the most, type of thing? And most of the answers was Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt. There were like a couple of Trey Amoses in there, but I think all of the rest of them were literally Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt. And then also, Mike Hall brought up a good point. He said he's one of the handful of guys that I can't wait to see in joint practices and the preseason. And if he truly is going to make a push to get on the field early this year, I really think he has a solid chance right now. You even have Ben Standig. He did an entire article breaking down like what his way too early roster projection is right now for the 53, the final 53, once we're going into the regular season after the third preseason game. And of course, Ben has JCM making the roster over Jeremy McNichols and Chris Rodriguez. But I'm not going to lie, I kind of assumed that was a pretty safe projection at this point. I don't think that's going out on a limb. I'm not worried about him not making the team at all. Honestly, my only question is how soon. It's more of a when he will take over as the team's leading back, but not necessarily an if. But you know who isn't a safe bet to necessarily make the roster at all, but has shown some potential to him? Casimir Allen apparently is making some plays recently. Chris Russell pointed out the fact that Casimir Allen had a long touchdown catch and run, and he also said to thankfully in the Commanders practice. So apparently it was the last play of the Tuesday, July 29th practice, but he said thankfully the Commanders practice ends, which lets me know that it must have been really hot out there, because he wasn't the only one. Bleeding Burgundy and Gold said, "I was only at training camp for just 2 consecutive days. I have now been placed on IR and in jeopardy of missing the upcoming season. The heat is different." So I'm bringing all of that up to let y'all know that, hey man, stay hydrated, stay cool, man. That heat is apparently very serious. So if you plan on going to any of these practices and you haven't been to one yet and you don't know, you're not aware of that, I'm hoping that you just so happen to see this video and make it this far in the video and know that I'm begging y'all to please make sure y'all stay hydrated. It is hot out there for training camp. I know, I'm down in Atlanta, boy. It's crazy down here. But either way, Red Zone in the Lab said that there was a play where Luke McCaffrey threw the ball to Austin Eckler, and then I think Austin Eckler tried to throw it to somebody. Something like that. It was a double pass to Luke to Eckler, something like that. So quarterback to Luke to Eckler, whatever. But it was broken up because of some pressure, so the defensive line ruined the play. But I like the fact that I'm hearing that Cliff Kingsbury is cooking up some really crazy trick plays right now. We're starting to cook up some really innovative plays, man. We're about to get into that. We have no idea what's going on back. That Andy Reid, that Ben Johnson stuff, even though Ben Johnson gets way too cute with it. He takes it a little too far to the point that it's the detriment to the team. I feel like Cliff Kingsbury has like a perfect balance. I'm really excited to hear that we have, again, you got to remember, Luke McCaffrey was a quarterback in college. He very recently switched to wide receiver. That's why there's still some rawness to his game. I feel like if Luke McCaffrey had been playing wide receiver since high school, he probably would be way further ahead in his development. We probably wouldn't have been able to even get him in the third round, because athleticism wise, he has first, second round talent. There's just a lot of rawness to his game. That's the only reason he was available later in the third round for us to get him. I think over time, he's going to prove to be like a second round, maybe even live up to a first round talent at some point. There's just rawness. He very recently switched to wide receiver like the year or two before he just got drafted. He's been a quarterback, I think, his whole life up until that point. And my point is, Now we're tapping into that quarterback bag. Shouts out to Cliff Kingsbury for knowing his players and knowing, hey man, we could probably do some trick plays to take advantage of the fact that this guy was a quarterback longer in his life than he's been a wide receiver so far. So I think that's really interesting. Cliff Kingsbury, I'm telling you, we're about to get in our bag, man. Josh Connolly can play some running back if you need him to at times. Jalen Lane can do everything Deebo can. I mean, he can be utilized every single way. Hey, this offense is going to be fun. Now moving on to the wide receivers. Pedro Smith brings up a good point. He said it's funny how the team leaks the info to Schefter, and now the Commanders fan base turns on Terry, calling them greedy. They got exactly what they wanted. Yeah, like I talked about in my Terry McLaurin breakdown video from yesterday or a couple of days ago technically. I mean, that I do think that maybe Adam Schefter Adam Peters gave Adam Schefter some of that information to throw it out there that Terry McLaurin is asking for this ridiculous amount of money to kind of win the fans back in a PR battle after Terry McLaurin came and won the fans, pulling up to practices, doing a hold-in, signing autographs, getting everybody to chant for him. So who knows? You know what I'm saying? I'm really thinking that may be a thing. I agree with Pedro right there. Shouts out my boy Pedro. But like I mentioned earlier, some of the receivers on the team have been dropping passes at a fairly alarming rate. They're all making plays, but there's a lot of inconsistency going on right now. And Terry McLaurin, if anything, is Mr. Consistency, and that's why you really miss him right now. But it's not all bad, because Jaden Daniels, like I talked about earlier, hit Deebo Samuel at a certain point in practice. Ethan Cadeau said that it was a perfect seam ball for what would have been like a 30-ish yard gain. Great catch, too. Those two are really building some chemistry together. I love to hear that, man. And like I said, the silver lining of Terry McLaurin not being here, you prefer him here, but him not being here is allowing Jaden Daniels and Deebo Samuel to develop their chemistry to the point, like to the extent of like Deebo Samuel being a wide receiver one. So when Terry McLaurin comes back, it feels like you have two wide receiver ones on the team. And Deebo Samuel has stepped up like that. Like we said earlier, it seems like Deebo Samuel's getting at least 2 chunk plays every single practice. Touchdowns, chunk plays, all of that. He just, at some point, he's going to be unguardable. He's going to break free and make some big play, and I hope that translates into games in the regular season and postseason. Then Chris Russell pointed out the fact that Deebo Samuel, with an absolutely gorgeous route and diving catch, outstretched, beating Sainristil from Jaden Daniels. He said, man, gave a shake at the line of scrimmage and was off to the races. So he's working on his release package. You know, the thing with Deebo Samuel is that he's always been very talented. He's always been a guy that you give him the ball close to the line of scrimmage, right behind it, right ahead of it, and you let him work after that. So far, from what I'm hearing and seeing at Commanders training camp, he's tapping into a bag that I never really saw him tap into at any point for the 49ers. He's becoming a nuanced wide receiver. Release packages, the ability to catch the over-the-shoulder passes, to track it like this and everything. Like, he's working on a lot of wide receiver nuanced things, working on his route running. I don't remember him having that much of a nuanced bag for the 49ers, so I love to hear this, like the fact that he's evolving as a player, and even if he has lost some of his physical ability, he's gaining way more technical refinement, which will more than make up for it. And I also love that Mike Sainristil is always on Deebo Samuel in coverage. Every day of practice, Sainristil is following Deebo somewhere. And right now, with Terry holding in, Deebo is easily the best receiver we have on the team, and I love the fact that Mike Sainristil is consistently going at him. I remember breaking down Monday, July 28th's practice. It was like a sequence of plays where no matter Deebo went, Mike Sainristil was the one that was covering him. I love that. I mean, now granted, Deebo Samuel, I guess you consider him a slot receiver. Mike Sainristil is your starting slot corner, so it makes sense, but I love the fact that no matter what, Mike Sainristil is like, no, I got him. And I can't wait to get to the cornerback section of this video, because as like you saw in the title, Sainristil is apparently a lockdown corner already. And when we talk about it towards the end of the video, when I give y'all a lot of people's overall review of what happened throughout the practice, some people are saying that Mike Sainristil is the best player on the team. At least he's having the best training camp of any player. That's even better than Jaden Daniels. And then Zach Selby pointed out the fact that, yes, Deebo Samuel made that diving catch on a deep pass from Daniels, drew a lot of cheers from the crowd. Serge the Shooter said, Deebo, diving catch? Only the second week of camp? Oh, he's locked in. And I thought that was a good point, too. Deebo putting his body on the line to make a catch in only the second week of training camp is very significant. That guy is locked in. He's fully bought in. You can tell he's trying to contribute everything that he possibly can and improve himself as much as he can to help this team go win a Super Bowl this year. Also, shouts out to IsCarol31 on Twitter. She said, loving what I'm seeing of Deebo at camp. Man, I'm so ready for football. So it's just a lot of people that's looking at Deebo like, man, this guy's good. This guy's even better than what I probably expected him to be once we traded for him. And then also, shouts out to Scott Abraham for this clip right here. And he also tweeted with it, Jalen Lane's season loading. The Commanders rookie wide receiver has flashed during his first several days of training camp. I mean, he's had some of the biggest catches of all of training camp so far. He's had his welcome to the NFL moments as well. Like one time Mike Sainristil ran through him to break up a screen pass to KJ Osborne. But then the very next practice, Jalen Lane mosses him and Quan Martin in the back of the end zone. Now, granted, looks like he didn't necessarily get that second foot in bounds, but Jalen Lane is fighting. And just to let you know, like I've already said and heard from multiple people and sources that have been going to practices, Jalen Lane's already a starting punt returner. Now he's trying to work into being one of the main receivers that's part of the rotation. He's probably even fighting to become your starting slot receiver, or maybe even like your starting Z receiver to allow Deebo to play in the slot. Whatever you want to do, Jalen Lane wants to be a part of this offense. He's working tirelessly to keep improving and to prove that he needs to be out there. But like I've said in previous videos, you can be a maniac at catching, but this offense is so screen dependent, so run game dependent, that until Jalen Lane becomes a consistent blocker, he's not going to be on the field very often. But if he improves that way, hey man, it's up. I mean, the sky's the limit for his potential. He is not a fourth round talent. He only went in the fourth round because his production was terrible in college, and now it's because his offensive coordinator was terrible and his quarterback situations were always terrible. It was never him. I remember somebody in the video breakdown from Monday, July 28th, basically said that this guy, Jalen Lane, has already made more plays in training camp at the NFL level than he ever made his entire time at Virginia Tech. Hey, that's the byproduct of having Jaden Daniels as your quarterback and Cliff Kingsbury as your offensive coordinator when you're a very talented player. And now we have the resources on this team to actually get a lot of the greatness out of Jalen Lane's talent. Also moving on, Red Zone in the Lab said, okay, Michael Gallup is looking healthy. Yes, healthy. So apparently Michael Gallup had a pretty good day at practice at times, and even Chris Russell pointed out the fact that Gallup, the former Cowboys wide receiver, of course, had a catch on a quick slant at some point, and it looked really good. And then also moving on, Ethan Cadeau brought up the fact that it's been a whirlwind of a couple of minutes for Chris Moore. Because first he snagged a sick juggling one-hander from Sam Hartman down the left sideline. Then a few minutes later, like the play we talked about during the Jaden Daniels part of this video, Jaden Daniels threw a perfect deep ball that went through Moore's hands. It would have been a touchdown, but he dropped it. And then you also had Linnell Willingham talking about how Chris Moore had a circus catch with Jonathan Jones draped all over him to the point that it was even pass interference and it was an offside situation. So Sam Hartman was like, I might as well take the shot because it's a penalty on the defense. Worst case scenario, we'll just take the free 5 yards. And then there was even a point where Red Zone in the Lab said that Chris Moore beat Marshawn across the middle deep and then dropped it. That would have solidified his spot for sure as the 6th wide receiver. You beat Marshawn Lattimore on a route and then you score a touchdown on him. But again, it's the inconsistencies, going back to the theme of what this wide receiver room is doing right now. And that's why you miss Mr. Consistency in Terry McLaurin. But it seems like Deebo Samuel is stepping up as a big-time consistent player for us right now. Now, moving on to the tight ends. Shouts out to DC Sports Dre. He said, I wouldn't be surprised if Bennett starts to eat in Ertz's snaps this year. Everything I've heard suggests he's had a really good offseason. People have been hyping up Ben Sinnott a lot, like I talked about in my previous video when I broke down Monday, July 28th's practice. Ben Sinnott is one of the biggest X factors on the team because, again, you already know what you're going to get from Jaden Daniels, Bobby Wagner, Laramie Tunsil, a lot of the top veterans. But you have some guys where it's like either they're going to be great or they're going to be non-factors. Ben Sinnott is one of those guys that if he's great, it changes the entire offense. It adds plays to the playbook, everything. Linnell Willingham pointed out the fact that offensively, through 6 practices, I've seen a ton of heavy packages. That's 12 and 13 personnel used quite a bit. That's 1 running back, 2 tight ends, or 1 running back, 3 tight ends. And he also said that the team had the 6th highest rush rate in the NFL last year. Running is in their DNA. And he also said if Sinnott can emerge in year 2, we will see more pass plays out of those sets potentially rather than run plays, which is, again, going back to my point. If Sinnott develops, he's already a really good blocker. John Bates is an elite blocker, but he doesn't really have the potential to become a great pass catcher, receiving tight end option, at least not a consistent one. If Ben Sinnott taps into that receiving game and gets some Zach Ertz in him that way, first of all, he's already our best yards after catch tight end on the entire roster. I feel like once the ball's in his hands, he's just lacking the ability to get open and consistent hands to catch the ball. Once he taps into that, this offense takes off because he will be your best dual threat tight end on the entire team. And like I've always said, dual threat tight ends are like the secret weapons to offenses, because if you're on the field and the defense doesn't know if you're going to run the ball or throw it based off of the personnel you have on the field, that leaves them susceptible to everything. If a defense can't focus on specifically stopping one thing, you're vulnerable to everything. And if you have a Ben Sinnott that can block really well and can go out there and get open and catch a pass and then get some yards after catch, when he's on the field, you're in these heavy personnels with a bunch of tight ends. Teams are assuming you may run the ball. Ben Sinnott kill him down the field for 40 yards. Like, come on, man. I'm telling you. And then also shouts out to Cole Turner, a name I forgot about. Red Zone in the Lab said that Cole Turner definitely looks the part. I haven't heard about him necessarily making plays, but when we're talking about building athleticism, the talent is still there. Let's see if it can be refined and used enough to where it matters, to where he can even push for a possible roster spot. Now moving on to the offensive line, of course, with Laramie Tunsil back, no longer a vet day off, Laramie Tunsil just starting left tackle. Josh Connolly moves back to being your backup right tackle, with Andrew Wiley moving back from left tackle to right tackle. So your starting offensive line was Laramie Tunsil, Brandon Coleman, Tyler Biotish, Nick Allegretti, and then Andrew Wiley at right tackle. And Zach Selby said, "I'm liking the way Connolly is moving today." So I'm guessing insinuating the fact that he looked better in the practice Tuesday, July 29th, than he looked in the previous training camp practice. He said he just had a really solid pull block that allowed Felton to break loose for an explosive run. That's why you drafted Josh Connolly in the first round. That elite footwork and athleticism and mobility is what's going to take this run game to another level. Not even just the run game from the running backs. Even like when we're blocking screens, Josh Connolly is way more mobile than Andrew Wiley was for his last year, or even Brandon Coleman on the left side. He can get to that second level and take out linebackers and DBs way better, way smoother, way easier than any tackle we had on the roster last year. And so that's going to open up things for the run game and the screen game. And it's, instead of being 5 to 10 yard runs, it may be like 30 plus because of Josh Connolly's ability to get out there and pancake a few guys. I'm telling y'all right now, watch out. Also, Burgundy Blog said that it sounds like Connolly has been up and down so far in camp. Not surprised or concerned though. First of all, immediate dominators go top 10. But also, his biggest knock as a prospect was his play strength. So he'll need some seasoning there. He has to gain more play strength. He's working on it. But I've even heard, like we talked about from Monday, July 28th's practice, that he had a little bit of trouble in the run game against Dietrich Wise, but then he pretty much stonewalled him on most of the pass rush reps. He's already, right now, right out the gate, a really good pass blocker, and he still has room to grow to get even better and become one of the best pass blocking right tackles in the entire NFL, I believe. But he comes in immediately, day one, the day we drafted him, a really good pass blocker. Again, you saw what he did at Abdul Carter when Oregon played Penn State just a few months ago, late in their season. No QB hits, no sacks, no, not even quarterback pressures. But the run game is a concern. That's why he made it to 29. The play speed, you know, the play strength and things like that. We'll see how that goes. The play strength is a worry, not the play speed at all. He has elite level play speed already. But Zone Runner 331 brings up a good point. He said, you got to remember, Penei Sewell played left tackle at Oregon just like Josh Connolly, and Sewell struggled his rookie year at right tackle. And he was picked 7th overall compared to Josh Connolly, who was picked 29th. Now he's considered the second best right tackle in all of football, so just be patient with Josh Connolly. And to my point that I keep bringing up, a lot of scouts, a lot of people that I really trust have said, and sadly, you know, even though I don't love Mel Kiper's, you know, takes, he agreed with a lot of these people that I do trust. And even going back and looking at this tape, I kind of agree as well that if Josh Connolly just went back to Oregon for one more year and came out in the 2026 draft, he's probably a top 5 pick. No exaggeration. So to be able to get him a year early, but you're able to get him at 29th overall because you got him a year early, he was still in the draft. He may not necessarily be super ready to go out there this year and go crazy, but I bet you by year 2 and beyond, he's going to be a perennial Pro Bowler. I promise you. And then also, before we leave the offensive line and get to the defensive side of the ball, Red Zone in the Lab said that Laramie Tunsil looks massive and nimble. Had him pulling a lot today. So Laramie Tunsil is also very mobile. Now, granted, Josh Connolly is just a different level of mobility and footwork, but Laramie Tunsil and Josh Connolly together are going to provide way more mobility from our tackle duo group than we ever had last year with Brandon Coleman and Andrew Wiley. And I love Brandon Coleman. I think he's a far better guard. He's so monstrous and just a huge human being. I think with this move, the guard is going to make him a Pro Bowler. I'm telling you right now. But as far as mobility, getting out to the second level again, like blocking linebackers and DBs, Laramie Tunsil and Josh Connolly are way better than Brandon Coleman and Andrew Wiley would ever be. Now moving on to the defensive side of the ball, George Carmi brings up a good point. He said it's hard to assess players without pads, and I'm unsure what the other reporters have shared, but But I thought the defense had the better day today. And most people thought that the defense dominated the day before Monday, July 28th practice. But apparently Tuesday, July 29th practice that we're breaking out right now, the defense looked really good as well. He said the defensive line applied good pressure, and Von Miller apparently looked quick. And multiple people said the same thing. The offense was winning the first couple of days, and since then, especially once the pads came on, the defense has been winning. Terry not being there definitely plays a role, but in my opinion, I think the defense has just gotten way better from what it was last year. I think, again, I've given you the reasons why the offense may be off to a slow start slightly, and that's why they're being inconsistent. The offensive line gelling, trying to gain that chemistry, Terry McLaurin not being there, offense just naturally, with all of the install, all of the extra plays that Cliff Kingsbury's giving them, and all of the additional people that you just brought in this offseason, it may take a while. But I think also, on top of that, the defense is way better than what it was last year. Complete 180 on the defensive line, and especially that cornerback group. Now moving on to the defensive line. Pedro Smith was at the practice. He said, by the way, Von Miller looked good in the limited reps that I saw from him. So it's up, and he said good in all caps. Everything else is lower caps, regular, capitalization. He said good in all caps. And again, you had somebody else, just like I just said a couple of minutes ago, saying that Von Miller looked really quick. I'm telling y'all, Von Miller's going to get more sacks than a lot of y'all are predicting. And then also, Linnell Willingham pointed out the fact that Dorrance Armstrong tipped the ball, and that ended a rough period for the first team offense. So the offense is already struggling, and then the very last play of their struggle, Dorrance Armstrong just added salt into the wound by tipping a pass that Jaden Daniels tried to attempt. Now moving on to the linebackers. And here's a clip uploaded by Scott Abraham. And with this clip, he said, I think the Commanders' second-year linebacker Jordan McGee is going to take a leap this season. He's certainly learning from the best in Bobby Wagner, Frankie Louvu, and Ken Norton Jr. I completely agree with everything he said. To be a young linebacker, especially an athletic freak like him, remember, he was the most athletic, the highest ceiling linebacker in his entire 2024 draft class. Like relative athletic score, next gen athleticism, all of that. He was the most athletic linebacker in last year's draft. And so for a guy with that type of ball of clay to be molded by the likes of Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louvu on the field with them, and Ken Norton Jr. as your linebackers coach, he has insane potential to literally be the successor to Bobby Wagner at some point. And then Mark Tyler also said, I love McGee. He's the definition of a run and hit linebacker. This defense can really use his skill set. And like I've already said, his ability to cover guys is going to be the most important part. Bobby Wagner, elite run stopper, quarterback of the defense. You have Frankie Louvu, great blitzer, great at getting after the quarterback, great run stopper, can cover a little bit. Jordan McGee's ability to be that freaky athletic linebacker, to be able to cover anybody, running backs, slot receivers, tight ends, is going to change the entire defense. And also, Eddie, my boy, Ed Oliver over there, Ed Too Flat, said, Kane Medrano's stock is definitely rising. He definitely stood out with a pass breakup and an interception in the practice. And then Ben Standig backed it up. He said back-to-back plays from linebacker Kane Medrano. He jumped the pass and deflected a toss to Kosin Yankov. And then the very next play, finally was able to catch him one, got an interception. Sam Hartman threw the ball right at him. The sixth rounder has bounced between the second and third unit so far, and shouts out to him for really standing out. His coverage ability, which is the one thing that I mean, he has some potential to become a pretty good edge rusher if you want to utilize him like that. He has the potential with his athleticism to maybe turn into a pretty good off-ball linebacker, but coverage is one thing Kane Medrano can probably do right out the gate day one coming out of the draft, and he's showing you that. Now also moving on to the cornerback position. Zach Selby pointed out the fact that there were a lot of deep passes today, but he said that the cornerbacks were doing a pretty good job of providing coverage and preventing explosive plays, and at the very least, making it difficult for wide receivers to complete the passes. Skylar Nelson pointed out the fact that JD5 had a deep pass intended for Chris Moore in 11 on 11s, but Mike Sainristil and Quan Martin provided tight coverage, which ended up being incomplete. And Martin and Sainristil definitely are emerging as the next big defensive duo on this team. I love to hear it. And Linnell Willingham even pointed out the fact that after that play, Mike Sainristil was letting Chris Moore hear it. And he said that Mikey's having, in all caps, a camp. Mike Sainristil is one of the biggest standouts of this entire training camp so far. Ethan Cadeau, during Mike Sainristil's press conference, asked him what he's been seeing, what he's seen competing against Deebo Samuel through a week of training camp so far. He said, quote, every rep is to get me better, to get him better. That's what I needed, to have someone like him who's going to push me and help me get better, unquote. I love it. I'm telling you, this iron sharpens iron thing is huge. Like I told y'all, man, getting Josh Connolly in the first round, is going to help your defensive lineman because of his elite pass protection ability and potential. But also, you go and sign Von Miller in free agency to challenge him. That's going to make Josh Connolly better. That's going to keep Von Miller fresh. You know, he's not going to even have a chance to get lazy because now you're going against an elite potential pass protecting right tackle. Even as a rookie and Josh Connolly, you have Laramie Thompson on the left side. They're going to make each other better, man. And that goes to show for like the wide receivers and the corners, the offensive line versus the D-line, everywhere, man. We have some heavy competition here to where they're going to keep going back and forth. After one outdoes one, that one's going to come back and try to outdo them back, and they're just going to only make each other better from it. And then also shouts out to Dean Jones of Rigo's Rack. He said the Commanders got a gift from the football gods when cornerback Tre'Davion Amos slipped through the cracks. A back issue that came up during his pre-draft medical assessment saw the projected first-round pick drop to the end of day 2. Even so, General Manager Adam Peters didn't hesitate to end his dramatic slide at 61 overall. He said, Commanders rookie Trey Amos is making the best possible impression at training camp. Everything happens for a reason. Amos was stung at the time, but he landed in the right place. And Steve Weich from the NFL Network proclaimed that the physical cornerback has been the talk of Washington's training camp so far during a recent visit to Ashburn. This is him coming from the NFL Network to attend the practice and see what was going on. Also, the former NFL offensive lineman turned analyst Brian Baldinger was also suitably impressed. He noted how confident Amos looked. He also wants to see the first-year pro against wide receiver Terry McLaurin, once second-team All-Pro, once he can participate. And I can't wait for that matchup as well, to really see where these corners at. These corners have been balling in this offseason, this entire training camp, but let's see how balling they really are when Terry McLaurin pulls up. And if they still are, we really have a shutdown cornerback group. Like I've said, I'm staking my claim right now. We're going to have the best cornerback group in the entire NFC East, and I think it may be one of the best in the entire NFL, maybe top 5 level. And then also Brian Baldinger, his exact quote was, just watching him play the ball, when you want him to press and get his hands on guys, he is so confident without being a talker as well. Fred Smoot told us he's not a talker, but he's confident. Big, long, aggressive, can get his hands on guys and can run with anybody. And he's getting that opportunity against the receivers out there. Now, if Terry can get in here anytime soon, I want to see him run with a guy who can run like Terry McLaurin, unquote. And that's really like the last test that, like, all right, this Amos kid is ready. Eddie, our boy Ed Oliver, Eddie Del Negro over there, said Trey Amos had a nice pass breakup guarding Luke in 11s as well. He definitely looks the part. And then also, Linnell Willingham posted a clip of him breaking down like his observations from practice, and the quote that came from it that really stood out was that Marshawn Lattimore has been awesome as well. Like, we've been hyping up Trey Amos because, like, for a rookie especially, like, great on a curve, he's been looking ridiculously good. Mike Sainristil probably looks like the best player on the entire defensive side of the ball. And then don't sleep on Marshawn Lattimore because he's looked really good as well. Then Red Zone in the Lab pointed out the fact that Jalen Lane had a zig route, and maybe it would have possibly worked on other corners, but Lattimore was right there the whole way. You can tell Marshawn Lattimore is far healthier than he ever was for us last year after we traded for him before the trade deadline, and I love to hear it. He's going to be closer to his Pro Bowl Saint self than he was whatever we got from him last year. Red Zone in the Lab also said that the quarterbacks are kind of targeting Lattimore a lot, but he's holding his own, and it seems planned, and that's by design to keep challenging him, and he's answering to the call every time. Also, he pointed out the fact that Marshawn Lattimore had perfect coverage on Noah Brown at some point in the practice. There were no flags, no nothing, just perfect coverage. And also you had Scott Abraham, who interviewed Marshawn Lattimore after the practice, and he talked about how he loves focus, he loves hunger and everything like that. And that boy Marshawn Lattimore, if you go to Scott Abraham's page and watch that 1 minute and 10 seconds, that guy sounds like a guy that is ready. He is laser focused. He is very motivated. I'm super excited. The fact that he and Deebo Samuel play on opposite sides of the ball and really are rivals as far as like the position groups go. And they're both coming from previous teams, other successful teams at times, and having successful careers on those teams. They're both meeting in Washington to be very motivated and to prove themselves and go win a Super Bowl. Also, at a certain point, Jonathan Jones had a really nice pass breakup on a deep route, so he's coming in and contributing as well. Even Carlin Vickers, undrafted free agent, who's not likely to make the roster at all, but he had a really good pass breakup against KJ Osborne on a deep shot. So even like the guys that are practice squad may not even necessarily make the practice squad, this cornerback room is so deep that even those guys are making plays in training camp. Now moving on to the safeties, Chris Russell said that Will Harris and Von Miller just strung out Jaden on a keeper on a 3rd and 2 situation. Obviously don't have to tackle, but it looked like from you know, with the way that we don't do contact as of yet, that they pretty much stuffed that play. And I brought it up now because Von Miller's going to do Von Miller things. But to hear that Will Harris is one of the main reasons that we're getting run stops right now, I'm very intrigued. JP Finley even brought up the fact that there was some really good speed and contain from the Will Harris and Von Miller combo on that run play, man. I'm so excited. And then Red Zone in the Lab just simply said, Quan Martin is fast. And that's what you love to hear, man. Now that he has 2 fully healthy shoulders, I'm telling y'all right now, buy your Quan Martin stock now. He's going to be one of the premier players, one of the household names. I'm warning you right now. I'm telling you, this is an insider source. Quan Martin is going to be different. And also going back to Red Zone in the Lab, now moving on to special teams, he said, I might actually be able to watch field goals this year, which is a huge compliment to our kicker situation because it's been pretty bad for a few years now. And then last year we had a guy, but, you know, unforeseen circumstances took him off. He ended up on the Green Bay Packers balling out. Then we had to go through kicker after kicker after kicker. It was terrible. It was one of the main reasons we had to go for it a 4th down so often. But now he's saying, off of what he saw last year and what he's seeing now this year in comparison, that field goals should actually be going in a lot more often. And that has me super excited. Of course, we brought in Matt Gay, who literally doesn't miss field goals 49 or lesser in range. When it comes to PATs or anything 49 yards or less from the goal, he didn't miss a single kick last year. So I'm really happy to bring him in. Jay Daniels also brings up a good point. He said, outside being a cool human being, Matt Gay knocked down a lot, if not all of his field goals when I went on Sunday. Hope he answers to our kicker position. So Jay Daniels, MVP, went to one of these training camp practices recently and said that he saw Matt Gay never miss a kick, at least when he looked up. So he's ready. And then you also had Zach Selby update us on the fact that the guys that are returning punts as far as the punt return competition, Jalen Lane, KJ Osborne, Casimir Allen, and Demetric Felton. Those are your 4 returners competing. But like I've already said, Jalen Lane pretty much has that starting punt return job on lock. We'll see if he's competing for the starting kick return job. And then also Red Zone in the Lab noticed throughout practice at some point that Tressway was dropping dimes inside the 5 out of bounds. So the perfect punt, pinning them within the 5-yard line and going out of bounds, is unreturnable. That boy Tressway is locked in. He's trying to go win himself a Super Bowl as well right now. He seems to be right now playing his best ball. Even though it's only training camp, he's kicking his tail off. And then now moving on to the other observations from other people, just their overall reviews of practice. Stay tuned because some of these are really important. Like starting with Skylar Nelson. She talked about her day 6 takeaways. She said, first of all, good amount of special teams work before team drill. So now we're starting to dive deeper into our special teams bag and trying to work on that, trying to become one of the best special teams units in the entire NFL. Getting a way better kicker helps with that a lot, and a better punt return. Like I've already said, Jalen Lane, talent-wise, is going to be the best punt return that we've had at least since Brandon Banks. Probably even better than him. Also, cornerback Mike Sainristil is definitely the camp standout player right now. That is interesting. Out of all players on the entire team, offense, defense, including Jaden Daniels, Bobby Wagner, Mike Sainristil has been the camp standout. Also, Deebo Samuel continues to show true promise as a wide receiver. Again, we've already talked about how he's not just this athletic freak anymore, this strong wide receiver. He's a refined, nuanced, technical route running wide receiver right now as well. Also, she said that there were too many missed deep balls and Chris Moore dropped a big one. So it wasn't necessarily Jaden Daniels' fault. The receivers were dropping some, but of course, Terry McLaurin comes back. Maybe a lot of that will be fixed. Then Josh Taylor said his biggest takeaway from practices so far that he's been at. So this is not just from day 6, Tuesday, July 29th only. This is just every practice he's been to so far up to this point in camp. He said, first of all, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt is going to be really good, quick, sharp, has the vision. Second, he said Deebo Samuel is going to have an outstanding season. Everything he does looks just like he did before 2024. Honestly, couldn't be more impressed. And then he said Mike Sainristil, lockdown. There go your 3 main names that I'm hearing the most buzz about. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt at running back, Deebo Samuel at wide receiver, Mike Sainristil at corner. Those are probably your 3 biggest standouts so far. Then also Dula Vision, who's the one getting a lot of those elite pictures that you see from Commanders practice. He said his observations from day 6 of training camp. He said Deebo has impressed more as a true receiver. This is a reoccurring theme. I thought he would mostly be a gadget guy, but his routes are good too. Love to hear that. He also said the deep ball was not working today. Too many overthrows and a big drop by Moore. So Jaden Daniels also missing some things too as well. But I remember, like I said, I've heard a lot of drops from the receivers. And then he also said Sainristil is having the best camp out of any player on the team, in my opinion. These are multiple people that are not necessarily sharing notes and writing articles together or anything. These are different people with different points of views all coming to the same conclusions. And then also Linnell Willingham pointed out the fact that off day tomorrow for the Commanders, so there will not be a practice Wednesday, July 30th, according to Linnell Willingham. But he said so far through 6 practices, his biggest standouts and stock risers are Quan Martin, Dominique Hampton, Mike Sainristil, Tyler Owens. I love the Tyler Owens one. Jordan McGee, love that. Deebo Samuel, the defensive line in total. Bill, Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt, I love that one as well. That's one of my top 3 too. Michael Strachan, Jacob Martin, Dorrance Armstrong, Javonte John Baptiste, and Ben Sinnott. He's probably a close 4th. At least if I'm doing a top 4 out of all of those names that he said, the ones I'm most excited about, because again, we're not talking about the best players, we're talking about the biggest X factors where if they're really good, it changes everything for this team, because we already know what we're getting from certain guys like Quan Martin, and I'm already starting to picture what we're going to get from Deebo Samuel and things like that. But Tyler Owens, Jordan McGee, Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt, and Ben Sinnott, if they are better than what we expect, Super Bowl, literally. Like, those are the type of X factors that those guys are, especially Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt and Ben Sinnott and Jordan McGee. I don't know, I can't pick. And then also Disco said, I'm excited for the potential of some of our young players, but it's all fun and games so you face someone else with a different colored jersey. I bring that up because, hey man, watch out. Remember, we have 2 joint practices this offseason. I can't wait, because again, you always have this conversation and this debate. When the offense is looking good, does that mean the offense is just that good, or is the defense that bad? Vice versa. When we get to these joint practices, then we'll probably get some better answers like, okay, nah, this is serious. Remember, we go against the Ravens and the Patriots in joint practices. So especially when we go against the Ravens, I feel like that's a great way to measure and to compare to where we were last year. How good are we now? And then also, before we go, one last update. Nika Javala updated the fact that the DC Council's 2-day hearings on the Commanders' proposed stadium deal started this morning, so Tuesday, July 29th in the morning at 10 a.m. and a total of 503 people have signed up to testify as public witnesses. So let's go. Hopefully we get some momentum here in a good way for the stadium. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know if you feel everything discussed in the video. Please stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. I really appreciate y'all, man. You made it this far in this video. It's an hour long again, man. That's big salute. Really appreciate you, man. Thank you. Also, make sure you leave a like on the way out, and most importantly, especially with all of these training camp breakdown videos, let me know if you agree or disagree with any of my points. If you went to the practices, let me know anything that I missed. Let me know, because you may put me on to something like, hey, this player had a better day than you thought. This player had a worse day than you thought. You know, or maybe there was a player that I didn't talk about at all and they had some noteworthy plays, good or bad. You know, let me know any of that in the comment section, especially for those of y'all that have been going to the practices. Let me know all of that. I really appreciate y'all. And again, I'm going to keep y'all updated on everything Commanders, and apparently through Linnell Willingham, if we have Wednesday, July 30th off, which right now is 12:40 a.m. going into that day, that means I have plenty of time to maybe get a video or 2 out to y'all. So stay tuned. I have a lot of video ideas. I just got to pick which ones I'm going to do. Stay tuned. Leave a like on the way out. I'm going to catch y'all later. I'm out.